Previously on Spenelli Speaks.
Know you've been a good friend, and that's in the thick and thin, and I know it's never gonna end, 'cause you've been a good friend.
Hi everyone, Dani here. Welcome back to my channel. Today we are going to be talking about everything that I read in January. Now, when we get through this list, you're going to find that I did not finish a lot, but I did read quite a bit. And I'll explain why and how that happened. But anywho, if you are new here, welcome to my channel. It is so nice to see you. I look forward to meeting you in the comments. And if you have been around the block a few times, you know how much I love you. And I'm going to say it again. I love you. So thank you for being here. And let's talk about these books. So let's first start with some of the lingering books that I have out there. If you follow me on my vlog series, my weekly vlogs that I post on Saturdays, and I was looking behind me because I didn't know if I had the book near, but I think I already shelved it. But I did DNF Interview with a Vampire. I decided that I had no desire to go back to it, even though it is beautifully written. It is a great book. I just have no desire to read it right now, so I did reshelve it on my TBR shelf, and we will get back to it at some point in the future. Maybe, possibly, someday. Anywho, then, as you know, I am still reading Eye of the World. I got about halfway through now, and if you're familiar with this book, I'm to the part where they begin to separate. And that's not really a spoiler in any quest. Most people get separated. But that being said, this book is about it's a quest. I mean, it's a quest. And it's about certain magics coming back into the world, and is it going to be good or bad or indifferent or whatever? And there are some boys that could potentially be the one. So it's one of the one stories, but you don't quite know who it is. I mean, as a reader, you kind of know who it is, but you also, it's kind of ambiguous. So it might not be that person. But anywho, I'm to the part where the big group of people ended up getting separated in some way. And I'm really excited about that because I'm excited to learn about these characters individually. We see them in groups, we see them how they interact together, and we kind of see a few characters how they think, but I'm really excited now for them to be completely separated, to actually get in their heads and find out more about each of these characters. So I'm excited to continue with that, but I just wanted to kind of give you a brief wrap up of where I am at this point, which is at the halfway point. I did just put into Goodreads. So if you follow me on Goodreads, I'm starting to put in little notes for books that are taking me a little bit longer than the month. So books that I'm reading like throughout the year and stuff, I will put in little markers of where I'm at. I'll probably do that towards the end of every month, depending on how long I am reading the book. But this one I did just recently put a marker in, and I am at the halfway point. It says I'm at 50%. So I'm excited for that. But I'm excited to continue to read this. I'm not like really trying to get to the show so much. I have heard really good things, but I also have heard that you need to read at least the first 2 books, and that just is not going to happen this year. So I'm not worried about that. It'll always exist, so I can always come to it at another point. But that is where I'm at with Eye of the World by Robert Jordan. Another book that I'm still in the middle of, and I wanted to give you a quick update on, which is Kristin Lavransdatter. This is the third in the series. So this is called The Cross. This is a trilogy. It is a medieval writing. I am on page 192. So I would say I'm at the halfway point, I'd say. I have been picking this up and reading it a little bit more lately, and you have proof. It's in my vlog. I was there. And it's, as we near the end of this series, I feel like it's starting to get a little redundant in the marital issues, and However, when I was reading last night, I was like, okay, so this is redundant. However, now we're getting more into how the children feel about it, because now the children are starting to be like almost coming of age. So they're almost, you know, getting to that 18, 20-year-old age. So it's interesting to see how they're reacting to Kristin as their mother, to Erland as their father, who I am not a fan of Erland. He is just a schmuck. So I don't like him. So anything he does, I'm just like, I'm not interested. I really like Simon. I really like Simon. So I'm gonna be happy to finish this, just to finally have finished this book. But I also am really hopeful to see, you know, maybe where these characters go. I don't know how much more of like time we're going to see, because like I said, I mean, we've seen this from when Kristin was, you know, like I think 17 to now, which she has a 17-year-old son. So it's interesting to see how that all has evolved, but also it's been hard to get back to, because it has played through the same kind of things over and over again. But I do recommend, if you do like medieval writing, this is based in the 1400s. It's written in the 1900s, but it is based in the 1400s, and being a medieval piece. So I do recommend it if you like that kind of thing. So that is Kristin Lavransdatter. Then for a year-long buddy read, you know that I'm reading with Laura. We are reading Sarum, which is the novel of England by Edward Rutherfurd. And I have gotten 68 pages in. So I've read the first 2 chapters. The first chapter being Journey to Sarum, which goes over some of the hunters that were on the English island, and they came from the north down to the south towards Salisbury, which I found out through a subscriber that's how you're supposed to say it. So thank you very much for correcting me, near where Stonehenge is located. And we see that journey and the ice caps and how the island was formed and like deformed, and with the waves and erosion, and where a forest used to be and wasn't anymore. Very, very interesting to read about historically. So even though this is a fictional piece. And then in the second chapter, which is called The Barrow, that one was really interesting because we still see those hunters and gatherers, and then we see settlers, so farmers, and how they interact, how they decide to live together, how their languages kind of commingled, how their religious beliefs commingled, fighting, that kind of stuff, and how they became one entity towards the end of that chapter, as far as being one community. So very, very interesting piece. And I keep saying the word interesting, and in my head, I just watched Scott and Nell's video about language we use, and interesting is one of those words that means nothing, and I keep saying it, and every time I say it, I just hear that little bing that they had in their video, and I'm trying to now rethink, like, do I say interesting too much? Anywho, this was really thought-provoking and makes you think. Okay, I love these kind of reads because of the historical influence, yet being still in a fictional setting. The characters are really engaging, and then it gives you a really cool idea of what life was like back then. So I'm thoroughly enjoying this piece, even though it is a huge chunkster, but I'm taking the year to read it, so I'm good with that. I also read about 32% into the Wolf Hall book. That is part of Emily from Novelle Novels read along of the Wolf Hall trilogy. So that's the Thomas Cromwell trilogy. Wolf Hall is being the first book. So I'm 32% into that. I would say for that book, I am more so enjoying the narration of the book as I'm listening to it on audio. The narration does a really nice job. The narrator is fantastic. There's a little bit of, I would say, play acting in it. It feels like there's different voices. It is really good. That being said, the actual content at this point is quite boring because it's laying a lot of groundwork. We see Thomas Cromwell, we see his backstory, where he came from, and how he's kind of being an influencer to the king, King Henry VIII, that is. And he is influential in the sense that he's a lawyer, and he's working with the church to help King Henry do what he wants to do. And we get a little bit of action coming from Anne Boleyn as well. And I can tell you, she is a devilish lady in this book. She is really a schemer and is trying to get under everyone's skin. I think she's really setting herself up to take the throne away from Catherine, which, I mean, historically we know, that Wolf Hall is a fictional account of true events. But there's some truth in it, I think. There's definitely a lot of truth in it. So it's interesting to see how that is all playing out, and obviously knowing later on, what her end is. It's interesting to see how the groundwork was laid for that, as well as Thomas Cromwell, because again, we know the story, how the story goes there too. So it is very interesting. If you're interested in English history and you have been following that, or you have any little bit of a whiff of it, and you enjoy fictional accounts of that, as you can see, I like English history, then it's definitely the book for you. It is quite long. The second one is shorter, so if you're looking to jump in, it is quite long. We are reading that continuing in through February, so that's why I'm only 32% in at this point. But yeah, no, still enjoying it. Just more so because I'm listening to it on audio. I think it would have been taking me a lot longer if I was reading it physically. So yeah. So speaking of audiobooks, I did try to get on with the first book in the Sookie Stackhouse series with Amy from Amy's Booktube, or Booktube with Amy, and Ange's Book Chatter. And I read the first book because I have the first 6 books. I got them as a gift back when True Blood first came on HBO, because I absolutely loved the show, and I read the first book and I hated it. I really did. I am sorry to everyone who really enjoys that series and that book, but everything that those people say that they love about the book, I actually am the opposite and hate. A lot of people think that Sookie Stackhouse is such a brilliant character, and she's so outspoken, and she speaks her mind, and yada yada yada. I think she is a complete flake, and I think that she talks a big game, and she's just a blonde chick with boobs. I really just, and I think it's because in the very beginning of the book, she herself in first person describes herself, and she describes herself as pretty, blonde, and big boobs, and big butt, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, I don't care. I don't care. Who are you? And so that just picked at me through the whole book. I did not like Bill that much. I mean, individually, Bill was okay, but Bill and Sookie together, not okay. I felt like it was a weird, non-consensual situation a lot of the times. And knowing from the show, was really waiting for Eric, and then I forgot, he's not really in the first book. So needless to say, I did not like it. I did not like the book. I thought it was really poorly written. I'm sorry. That's just my opinion. That's my personal opinion. I I am super sorry to anyone who loved that book and book series. I love the concept. I love the show. I'm super happy that it was written because we got True Blood, but it's just not my cup of tea. I did not relate to it. Maybe 15 years ago, if I had read it when I originally got it, I would have been happier. But in the place where I'm at now, it's not my cup of tea. So I have nothing bad to say about anyone who does like it. Good for you. I think that's fantastic. But for me, I will be unhauling that series. So, anywho, speaking of all the things I tried to join in January, I tried to get in on the January O'Flannery. And the thing that I did was I just read one short story. So I did not read this. I just picked out one short story that I knew that everyone really talks about. So I read A Good Man is Hard to Find, which is about 15 pages long, and it is a doozy. It is a doozy of a story. Basically, this family decides that they're going to drive down to Florida for like a 3-day vacation, and in the very beginning you get some major foreshadowing because the grandmother, and I'm sorry, but this is probably going to be pretty spoilery, but the grandmother says, no, we shouldn't go there. We should go to Tennessee where my family is, because there is an escaped convict out on the loose and he is wreaking havoc to anyone he meets. But of course they're all like, no, you're old and who cares what you have to say. So they head on to Florida, and lo and behold, they do end up meeting with this convict. And moral of the story, from what I got in what happens, and I won't say what happens, so I won't give you that spoiler, but the moral of the story that I took from the story is that we are all sinners. If you may know, Flannery O'Connor does a lot of writing that involves religion-ish, spiritualism, faith, stuff like that. But we're all sinners and we will all be judged someday, and we have to know that. That's all I'm going to say about that. When I started reading it, I was like, oh, I think I know how this one ends, just from watching different reviews and stuff on BookTube. And when I got to that point, I was like, I didn't think that was really going to happen. I really was still convinced that what happens wasn't going to happen, and it did. And I was just like, wow, it's a very impactful story in so few pages. So if you are a literary reader where you really enjoy jumping into a book and breaking it up and dissecting each line, Flannery O'Connor is definitely a writer you want to pick up. Then another book I didn't like, so not that I didn't like A Good Man is Hard to Find, but I read Eat, Pray, Love. If you watch my vlogs, if you watch my weekly vlogs, you saw me kind of in process of reading this, and I was struggling a lot of the time because I just found the story very disingenuous, and I just couldn't relate to her story. I couldn't relate to her at all. So this is written by Elizabeth Gilbert, who is a prolific author. She has tons of books out, both nonfiction and fiction. And this was written, I think, in the early 2000s, where she is struggling in life and decides she is going to take this year-long journey that is going to go through Italy, India, and Indonesia. And in Italy, she basically eats. India, she prays. And in Indonesia, she loves. That's all you need to know, folks, because that's all that happens. I feel like this whole book was just a privileged white woman who is able to travel the world, say that she did, and tell us about all of the great things that she did, without really giving us any true indication of how much she has grown as a person or how she has actually I ended up giving this a 2-star rating on Goodreads, and the only reason why I got 2 stars is because it was rounded up. So it was like a 1.6 for me, because the writing was okay. It's a memoir, so I mean, I don't really know if I can even rate the writing style, but it was easy to read. It was broken up pretty well. She breaks it up into like 100 and some odd pages, which is significant to this bead thing in India. I don't know. She explains in the beginning, and I was like, okay, great. So it's broken up pretty good, so you get these stories or anecdotes that are quick and easy, and you just move on. My engagement was, I would say, like in the 2 range, because I really did want to know about all of these places, and I wanted to know more about why everyone is so obsessed with this book, because there's got to be something that I'm missing, right? So my engagement was in the okay range, and then the creativity, I just gave it a 1, because it really annoyed me. Like, the entire time she's in Italy, she is talking about trying to get over her lover that she had after divorcing her husband. And she refers to her husband, but then she keeps talking about her lover. And I'm like, wait a minute. So you're more remorsed about your lover than you were about your husband, who you were married to for, I think it was 10 years or something. So I kept getting confused at who she was talking about, and it really made me angry, like how frivolous she was with love. And I know there are so many people out there that we do. And there's points in our lives where we just can't imagine living without anybody else. But the way she would describe her relationship with this lover and how miserable they were together, I just was like, are you 12? Like, why are you acting like an angsty teenager when you are 34 years old? You need to grow up. Like, so it really pissed me off. Excuse my language. And then all she did was eat. I went to this place and I ate pizza, and I went to this place and I ate pasta, and I went to this place and I ate pizza, and I went to this place and I ate pasta. I don't care. Good for you. I don't care. Because it's nothing to do with what your spiritual journey is, which is what you said this book was going to be about. You took us in the beginning, you said, I need to find God. I want to find God. I'm here to find God. And then all for the first third of the book, pasta, pizza, pasta, pizza, pasta, pizza, pasta, pizza. Who cares? So then we move on to pray, which is in India. She goes to an ashram and she meditates, and she complains about meditating, and she complains about the mantras she's supposed to be doing if they're too long or whatever else. And she meets a few people who are so much less, than her as far as having material things. And she doesn't even reflect on that. She just talks about like how she's meditating and how she met this one guy from Texas, and he's kind of putting her in her place, which I did like the side characters way more than I liked her. So there were a few side characters that kept me going. But I don't feel like at all through her entire section of India where she was supposed to, be enlightened and find her spiritual being and just be centered. I don't feel like she left being centered. I feel like it was just like another movement in her life that she just got to say, oh, I did all of this, so now I'm enlightened. I did not get that at all. I had no reflection of that. She meets this one random guy, and he like takes her, I think he was like a plumber or something, or air condition repairman. He takes her to this one room, and like she sits there, waits for the sun to go down, looks at the stars, and then has this like metaphysical meeting with her ex-husband to like let it go. And to me, I'm like, oh, so after 160 pages, all it took was for you to go up to a tower, look at the stars, and say, I'm letting you go, to get over that. I feel like I'm shouting. I did not like this book. Then come to the final stop, which is love. And this is where you really get the full scope of her privilege. She literally tells us how in Indonesia, you cannot be there longer than a month. Your visa will not go longer than a month unless you bribe somebody, of which she did, whilst telling us a story about one of her friends who's there because he was deported from the United States. He lived in New York, and right after 9/11, with the Patriot Act, he was deported, even though he was married to a U.S. citizen legally, like it was a real marriage. He was deported in a really shady way. And she's sitting here talking about her year-long trek across the globe, and how she was able to bribe somebody so she could stay in a country. And she gets to come and go as she pleases. Again, if you like to read about privileged white women, this is the book for you. If not, throw it away. So I will be unhauling this book. I was not happy with this book. I also have Eat, Pray, Love Made Me Do It. I'll be unhauling that as well. I thought this was terrible. I did not relate to anything with her story. I don't care that she found love in the end. I feel like her whole journey was just a gimmick, and I don't feel anything for her. So sorry for the rantiness of that, but yeah, really didn't like that book. I know that there's a lot of you out there really did, and it really resonated with you, and I want to congratulate you on that. I think that's what's great about reading, is we all have our different experiences and we all have our different interpretations of books. However, for me, that one was just not happening for me. So, hi. I would not necessarily call this editor Dani, because I'm not editing right now. Let's just call this baby brain Dani. I all of a sudden had a thought that I never told you about Atonement, the book I read with the DoubleBookedCo book club. I'm fairly certain, obviously in editing, I will know if this is all for naught, but I'm pretty sure that I completely forgot to tell you about my reading of Atonement. Yeah, I'm pretty sure. So I'm going to quickly give you a wrap up on that. If you want more, you want to see a more in-depth discussion about Atonement, jump over to DoubleBookedCo's YouTube channel. We did a live discussion about it. I'm pretty sure I yelled a few times. I did give that book a 3-star rating, mostly because it is well written, and it really deserves a higher rating, because it is a very literary, masterful piece of literature. I just particularly didn't love it because I really don't like unreliable narrators. So, spoiler alert, this book is heavily based on an unreliable narrator, as in more than 2/3 of the book is unreliable. If you're familiar with Atonement, you know that there is something very significant that happens in the very beginning of the book that sets the path for the characters that necessarily would not have been their path. It's set in the late 1930s into the 1940s during World War II, and a young girl around the age of 13 sees something and then basically believes it to be one thing instead of the other, and forces 2 lives to be basically ruined. I think if you are a person who really likes literary pieces that involve a lot of scrutiny as far as reading goes, then definitely pick this one up. It has a lot of really beautiful language in it. It's very atmospheric in the sense that when you are in certain sections, like part 2, you are in France in World War II. It is very immersive. And then in part 3, you do see like a wartime hospital in London. So it does have a lot of really great atmospheric tones. However, for me, knowing that by the end, finding out later that a lot of things were given to you by an unreliable narrator, I really lost a lot of my interest in the book. But if you really like poetic reading, I definitely think the book is for you. If your attention doesn't get swept up in that kind of thing, then it's probably a book you want to DNF. In our book club, I would say there were a good 2 handfuls of people who ended up DNFing it, which is great. We don't want anyone reading books that they don't want to read. So if you are interested in joining DoubleBookedCo's book club, please be known that it is a very inclusive and welcoming space. And if you read a book, great. And if you don't, you don't. If you love a book, hate a book, are indifferent, we have it all. So anywho, baby brain, totally forgot to talk about that in my wrap up. Probably because the book wasn't in my vision, but I wanted to make sure that I did something for that, because I read it and I rated it and I totally forgot to tell you about it. So anywho, back to your normal programming. The last book that I read was actually the first book that I read in January, and it was quite good. So I got this as a wonderful Christmas gift from Lindsey's Little Library, and this one is called The Little Shop of Found Things by Paula Braxton. This was really good. It is the first in a series, so I will definitely be looking into more of the book. I think once on Goodreads, did I give it like a 4-star rating? I think I did. I think it was written really well, as far as being engaging and giving us what we needed. The characters were insightful, and you really felt for them. This book is about a woman and her mother, who the mother is going through a pretty rough divorce, and the woman is like in her 20s, so it's a 20-year-old daughter and then her mother, and they move into a small town and they buy an antique shop because that's what her mother's vocation is. She's all about antiques. But there's something special about the daughter, Xanthi. She can actually hear certain antiquities sing to her, so she can hear their past. Not all, but certain ones that have significant value, or a story. And there's one specific thing that really sings to her and ends up transporting her back in time. There's a little bit of ghostliness in this, as well as a little bit of a love interest, which to me was a little weird because obviously it was like Outlander. So there was a few things that felt like this has been done before, I feel. Like Outlander and Kindred, we have all these stories that people are being transported back in time and they're like going back and forth. And yeah, I don't know. So that was a little like, oh, this is one of those stories, but it was really good. She's trying to save someone in the past. And again, there's a few like plot hole things that like, anytime you have time travel, there's a plot hole. So, there was a few of that going on, but it was really good. I read it pretty quickly. Pretty sure I vlogged some of it as well. But I liked it. I'm interested to see what the second book is going to be like, because if they're going to be able to go back in time again, is she going to see this person? I don't know. So this one was really good. I think this is a newer book too. So it looks like, I can't read. Oh, there it is. 2019. So pretty new, and a really good read. So if you like books that go back in time and female protagonist, definitely one to pick up. And that's really it. That's all I read. I did try to pick up a ebook. I think it was called Oceanic or something like that, by the author of that World of Wonders, and I DNF'd it. It was all just poetry, and I'm just not a poetry person. So yeah, I DNF'd that real fast. And I probably tried to do another audiobook and just didn't finish it. But that's okay, because I still finished, what was that, 1, 2, 3 books, and I got pretty good into the other ones, so yay. It's all good. Anywho, so that's all I have for January. I hope that you all are reading something great, better than what I have started my year out with for sure, as far as books that I've finished. I do have some that I'm absolutely loving, but I'm just not finished with yet. I'm hoping that February looks better, so I hope you are reading something great. But other than that, take care, stay safe, and as always, you know how it goes. Happy reading. Bye!